For 7 full years, I poured every ounce of myself into caring for my grandson. I wasn't after praise or trying to prove a point, just faithfully handling what needed to be done day after day. I soothed him to sleep with my hands and paced the floors through fevers and nightmares. Then suddenly, my daughter-in-law looked me dead in the eye and said, "We need our own space now." Just like that, I was shown the door. No fanfare, no thanks. My heart bruised and my pride barely hanging on. I sold my only apartment in the city and moved back to the countryside to live with my sister, telling myself I needed peace. Maybe even that it was finally time to live for myself. But that peace lasted barely a season before the phone rang one muggy afternoon. It was my son. "Hey, Mom, any chance you could come help with Tyler over the summer? He really misses you." Then a pause. "Oh, and while you're here, could you cover his summer camp? It's about $5,000. $5,000. So now, I wasn't just the backup babysitter. They expected me to be their personal ATM too. They acted like I'd sold my home to bankroll their lives. Not this time. This story was getting rewritten, and I was flipping the script that night at dinner. The atmosphere felt thick and uneasy, like a pot left too long on the stove, simmering with a smell that promised something was about to burn. Jenny, my self-proclaimed clever and capable daughter-in-law, poked at the green beans on her plate with the tip of her fork, her brows furrowed as if trying to crush the vegetables with sheer contempt. "Kylie, did you rinse these properly this time? Tyler's stomach is sensitive. You know he can't handle dirty food." She didn't raise her voice, but her words stung like needles. I set my bowl down, feeling the weight settle in my chest. I had washed those greens twice, peeled and trimmed every part thoroughly. What else could be wrong? Before I could say a word, she turned to Tyler. "Sweetie, is Grandma's cooking better? Or do you prefer it when Mommy takes you out to eat?" Tyler glanced from her to me. "Grandma's food is good too," he mumbled, but his eyes were already picking sides. A chill spread through me. Jenny softened her tone now, remembering Jason was right there. "Kylie, could you maybe turn down the TV at night? We all have early mornings, and Tyler has school. That show you watch keeps us awake." I had always gone to bed early and risen early. They were night owls. Our schedules clashed often, and I knew it wouldn't be the last time I looked at Jason. He kept his head down, chewing, pretending not to hear. A sudden fury rose in me, stealing my breath. "Jenny," I snapped, my voice trembling. "I cared for Tyler every day and night for 7 years. Do you honestly think I'd hurt him? I'll turn the volume down, but don't you dare twist things or lie." Jason finally looked up. "Mom, come on, Jenny didn't mean it that way." His tone was light, trying to smooth things over as if calming spilled milk. "She just wants what's best for Tyler. For all of us, can't we be understanding?" Understanding? My hands shook. I had been nothing but understanding. I cooked, cleaned, ran errands, cared for your child from dawn till dusk. And this is what I got. Complaints about how I washed vegetables, about the TV volume. Jenny put down her fork, her lips curling into a faint, polite smile that felt like a silk-covered blade. "Kylie, it's not that we don't appreciate you. We just feel it's time for our own space. Tyler's getting older. He needs to develop independence. We'd like to try managing things ourselves for a while." Independence, a neat little word hiding what they really meant. The truth was obvious. I no longer belonged. I was clutter they wanted cleared away. For 7 years, I'd orbited their family like a spinning top until I lost all sense of self. Now, worn out, they shoved me aside like unwanted furniture. I gave them warmth, but all they felt was the heat. Too much, too close, too inconvenient. After that night, the house changed. It was as if someone hit mute. Jason and Jenny moved around the house like ghosts, expertly avoiding me. We used to sit after dinner, share stories, watch a little TV. Now, they cleared their plates and vanished, or took Tyler for walks without me. I was left alone in the empty living room, whispering to myself in front of a screen like a ghost, pretending to belong among the living. I wasn't just ignored. I'd been demoted. Not grandma anymore, just background noise, or worse, creaky furniture. I tried reaching out to Tyler, offering to read a story or build block towers. But he pulled away, eyes wary and unsure. "Mom says I need to learn to play on my own now," he said. I shouldn't always rely on you." That sentence cut deep, carving itself into my heart like a blade. Children don't know how to lie. They just repeat what they're taught. Jenny handed him that knife herself that night. Something inside me froze. The warmth I felt turned cold. Then colder still. I lay awake in the narrow twin bed of the cramped guest room, sleep refusing to come from the master bedroom next door. I heard muffled whispers. Jason and Jenny speaking quietly. Restrained, I couldn't make out the words, but I didn't need to. The tone said it all. I was already outside looking in. I glanced at the nightstand, where a small photo sat. Tyler as a toddler, chubby cheeks glowing, flashing a gummy smile straight at the camera. Tears came fast, hot, and unstoppable. A few nights later, Jason stood at my door. He knocked softly, like a guilty conscience. He rubbed his hands nervously, eyes darting everywhere but at me. "Mom," he said, clearing his throat as if about to deliver good news. "You've worked so hard all these years. We think maybe it's time you really rest." I said nothing, just stared. He hesitated, choosing his words carefully, like arranging flowers at a funeral. Jenny and I talked, and well, we thought it might be better if you moved back to the countryside or got a little place nearby. Somewhere more peaceful. Our schedules are late now, and we wouldn't want to disrupt your sleep. Peaceful for my own good, so I could rest. A pretty coat of paint over what was really eviction. They weren't thinking about my rest. They just didn't want to see me anymore. What they wanted was for me to vanish quietly from their lives. And just like that, something inside me turned cold forever. No screams, no slammed doors. Sometimes the heaviest sound is the silence that follows giving up that night. I said nothing. The next morning, I started packing. I didn't have much. A few clothes, my medications, some toiletries. Standing in the living room one last time, I saw Tyler's little award certificates pinned to the wall, his tiny socks I washed yesterday swaying gently on the balcony line. Every corner whispered how much I gave, and now none of it was mine anymore. In the kitchen, I reached for my old apron, still faintly smelling of grease and garlic, a mark of all I'd done and everything they wanted erased. I hoped to hug Tyler goodbye, maybe say a few parting words, but at the door, Jenny zipped up his coat without even looking at me. "Hurry up, Tyler. We're late for art class," she said, cold and impersonal, like talking to a stranger at a bus stop. Tyler glanced back at me. Hesitation, maybe sadness, but mostly confusion flickered in his eyes. He mumbled, "Bye, Grandma," and let her lead him away. The door slammed shut behind them. That sound wasn't just a noise. It was a verdict. My place in this family was over. Jason walked me down the stairs. In the elevator, he said nothing, occasionally sneaking a glance, then quickly looking away like a schoolboy caught cheating on a test. In the lobby, he pulled out some crisp $100 bills, 3 or 4, and shoved them into my hand. "Mom, take this in case something comes up," he muttered. "And if you ever need anything, call me." I stared at the money. It felt like burning coals in my palm. I didn't take it. I didn't say a word. I just grabbed my small suitcase and walked out without looking back one step, then another. My spine straight, my pace steady, not giving him a single moment to regret. This wasn't defeat. This wasn't surrender. It was dignity. Let them believe they'd erased me from their lives soon enough. They'd realize I could thrive without them, maybe even better than before. When I stepped out into the night, the sky was already dark, headlights flashing across the streets, and neon signs flickering over bustling sidewalks. The city throbbed with restless energy, relentless and alive. Yet amid all that movement, not a single corner felt like mine. I stood at the sidewalk's edge, watching strangers flow past like waves, feeling for the first time that the world had moved on without me. Where was I supposed to go? Only one place came to mind, the old apartment my late husband and I had painstakingly bought, a small worn space, but ours nonetheless. After Jason married, he'd invited me to live with him and Jenny, and the apartment had been empty ever since I'd lived there alone before, clinging to memories like they were air. But now, did I really want to go back to that cold, peeling place and spend my days growing old in silence? I turned away and found the cheapest motel nearby. The room was barely big enough to open my suitcase. The air was damp, heavy on my lungs. Mildew curling in the ceiling's corners, I lay on the creaky mattress, eyes fixed on the yellow water stains overhead. Sleep refused to come. What now? I fished my phone from beneath the pillow, fingers trembling as I dialed the only number that made sense. Nancy, my sister, who'd settled in a quiet town miles away. We hadn't spoken in years, she answered after a few rings, her voice warm but groggy from sleep. Kylie, what's wrong? Why call so late? I meant to brush it off with a laugh, say something casual, but when I opened my mouth, the tears spilled fast and raw. My voice broke, pain pouring out in shattered pieces. It wasn't pretty, but she understood. Wait, what? They did what? Nancy's voice sharpened, cutting through the static with fierce anger. Jason's completely lost it, and Jenny too. Who treats someone like that? Her fury was clear, but her tone steady. Kylie, don't cry anymore, hear me? Pack your things, come stay with me. We'll figure this out. Together. Her words sparked a flame inside me, slicing through the shadows that had swallowed me whole. Of course, I still had my sister. When we hung up, it felt like light flickered back to life inside my chest. I wasn't going back to that apartment. I wasn't going to sit there waiting for someone to need me again. That place, once my home, had become a shrine to a life that no longer existed. It was my last emotional anchor, and it had turned into a chain. Selling it wouldn't just keep Jason and Jenny's hands off it. It would free me. The next morning, I called a real estate agent. The apartment was worn, but its location was prime, a short walk to the subway. The market was hot, the agent said, and with good timing, it could bring a solid price. As I signed the listing papers, my fingers trembled slightly, but inside I felt a calm resolve I hadn't known in years. This money, this decision, it was for me. For the first time, it was about my future alone. The sale moved quickly within a month. The buyer signed and the paperwork was done when the money hit my account. Not a fortune, but enough to carry me safely through the years ahead. I finally breathed out I didn't tell Jason or Jenny. They had no clue the apartment belonged to someone else now, or that the money quietly waited in an account under my name. That money was my final secret, my shield I began planning carefully. Some of it went into a fixed deposit, untouchable, my unbreakable safety net. The rest stayed liquid, ready for whatever came next. Then I bought a bus ticket to a small town in Maine. As the bus pulled away, I watched the city skyline blur into a smear of steel and neon. The crowds at subway entrances, blinking storefronts, glass towers I'd passed every day, all faded into the background noise I didn't know what awaited me down the road. But one thing was clear. I wasn't going back to that house. It felt like breaking free from a cage, bitter, strange, and oddly freeing. Like uncorking a bottle sealed for half my life, only to taste a swirl of every emotion I'd never allowed myself to feel. Relief, regret, fear, and finally, peace. Hours later, the road curved into rolling green hills. The air shifted, pine needles, damp earth, clean, cool, alive. It felt like something unseen smoothed the knots in my chest. The bus stopped at the town's tiny station, and there she was. Nancy, hands buried in her coat pockets, eyes searching the windows. She looked a little older, a few silver strands in her hair, but her smile was just the same. Bright, wide, unwavering. Kylie, she called, moving toward me. The moment she pulled me into a hug, I broke down like a lost child, finally finding home. 7 years of exhaustion, humiliation, and resentment spilled out in that embrace. All the disappointments, sleepless nights, the times I stood alone in someone else's house, trying not to breathe too loudly. She held me close, rubbing my back gently. "You're here now. That's all that matters," she whispered. "It's over. You've got me. You're not alone anymore." Her voice was like mountain wind, clean, steady, sure. We drove to her cozy 2-story cabin on the forest's edge. In the yard, tomatoes, green beans, and corn grew in neat rows. Chickens strutted across the grass like they owned the place. The house wasn't fancy, but it was bright and spotless. Everything in its place, every corner touched by her care. A jar of homemade blueberry jam sat on the windowsill, Catching the last golden rays of afternoon sun, I stood at the door, breathing deep. The air smelled rich with soil and fresh grass. A wind chime tinkled softly beneath the porch, a distant rooster crowed. And in that moment, I felt still city lights may glitter, but they never warmed me here. The earth was simple but solid beneath my feet, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I belonged. Life in the country was slow and honest. Each morning, I woke not to traffic's roar, but to birdsong outside the window and the clucking of chickens and ducks in the yard. Gone were the jarring alarms, concrete glare, and choking noise. Days began with sunlight filtering through leaves and the scent of earth on the breeze. During the day, Nancy and I worked side by side in the garden, pulling weeds, watering vegetables, pruning leaves, watching tender green sprouts grow taller each day. I felt something inside me take root again. We kept a few chickens, and every morning brought fresh, warm eggs nestled in straw. Nancy even taught me how to bake bread in a wood-fired oven. The golden crust, smoke, and yeast scents, something I'd never known in the city. Sometimes we strolled to the town market to pick up supplies, meeting neighbors and old friends, many I'd never met before. But everyone greeted me warmly, with easy smiles like sunlight, humble but full of warmth. Sure, the work left my muscles sore, but at night I slept deeply. No nightmares, no cold silences, no heavy weight pressing on my chest like that old home had. Here, people spoke plainly, sometimes rough around the edges, but it was honest, far better than the thin smiles and sugar-coated half-truths I'd grown used to in the city. The old man next door often showed up with freshly caught trout. Another neighbor brought warm cornbread wrapped in a tea towel. "Eat up," she'd say. "If you want more, I'll bake another batch." Somehow, those simple words healed more than any apology ever could. Nancy and I often sat on the wooden bench in her yard, peeling string beans as the sun set behind the hills. One evening, while shelling peas into a metal bowl, she asked, "Any plans now that you're settled?" I smiled, glancing at the patch of earth just beyond the porch. "Well, first things first, I want to fix this place up, make it more comfortable to live in." I paused, thoughts already forming. I've been mulling over what to do with the rest of that money and thought, why not start something small? The air's clean, the soil's fertile. Maybe a little farmstay or selling some veggies and pickles we grow here. Nothing huge, just enough to keep us busy. Nancy's eyes lit up right away. "I've wanted to do that forever, just never had the funds," she said. But now, with the two of us, we could really make it work. Seeing her so excited steadied me in a way I hadn't felt in years back in the city. I'd spent every day caught up in Tyler's after-school snacks, Jason's moods, Jenny's whims, pulled in every direction and never allowed to find my own shape. But here, tending the land, what I planted, I knew exactly what would grow in return. Just as life started to feel steady, it all shattered with one phone call, caller ID. Jason. I stared at the screen for a moment, my heart sinking with that familiar weight. I stepped to the far end of the yard, out of Nancy's sight, took a deep breath, and pressed answer. "Hey, Mom." His voice was off, too casual, too forced. "Hi, sweetheart," I said evenly. He made small talk for a bit, but didn't ask how I was, or mention my leaving. He wasn't checking in. He was calling for something. "So, everything okay out there? You managing money all right?" "I'm fine," I said calmly. "Not spending much." "Good." A pause. Then came the real question. "Hey, about that apartment. You used to live in it. Did you end up selling it?" I smiled slightly, still composed. "Yeah, I sold it." "How much did you get?" he asked quickly, trying and failing to sound casual. I laughed coldly, but kept my tone light. "Not much. Just enough for Nancy and me to get by and fix up the old house. Don't worry, I won't be bothering you." Silence. I could almost hear him wrestling with disappointment. After a moment, he tried again, voice low and hesitant. "Mom, things are really tight now. Tyler's school costs are crazy and—" I cut him off. "You and Jenny need to learn to manage your own finances. My money's locked away. I'm not touching it at my age. I need to make sure there's something for me. You understand, right?" "Yeah," he said quietly. And just like that, the call ended. I stood in the yard, still holding the phone, staring at the distant hills. The scent of soil and pine was in the air, but peace was nowhere to be found. I knew this was just the beginning. They wouldn't let go easily later. Nancy must have noticed my expression. She came over and tapped my arm lightly. "Jason called, didn't he? What did he want this time?" I told her everything. She slapped her thigh, furious. "Didn't I say they were after your money? Kylie, don't get soft again. They'll pull you back the moment you blink." I nodded slowly, my eyes sharpening. In their minds, that house money wasn't mine. It was just waiting to be inherited. They smiled sweetly, but saw only an account to drain whenever they liked, sure enough. It wasn't long before the next move came, this time cloaked in a new disguise. Tyler, Grandma. His voice was soft, familiar, hesitant. The sound of old memories tugging at my heart. That one word hit me hard. 7 years of stories, snacks, Band-Aids, and bedtime hugs. Bonds not easily broken. I kept my voice gentle. "Hey, Tyler, you miss Grandma, huh?" "Yeah, I miss you," he sniffled. "Grandma, when are you coming back? I want to play with you again." I stayed quiet for a moment, heart twisted with too many feelings. Was this really him? I asked carefully. "Sweetheart, did Mommy or Daddy tell you to call me?" Silence. Just his breathing, then a faint whisper. "Yeah," Mommy said. "If you come back, we can go to the fun park and you'll help pay for robot camp." And just like that, something inside me snapped. So that was it, same game, same playbook. They were using him, his innocence and love, as a prop, turning him into a soft-spoken envelope for their next fundraising pitch. They wanted me to pay again, for love, for being missed, for a place in a family that never really wanted me to stay, only to serve. But not this time. Never again, I steadied myself, smoothing the tremor in my voice. "Grandma misses you too, sweetie. When I get the chance, I'll come visit. But you be good, okay?" After I hung up, my hand clenched the phone tightly. That last thread of warmth, the emotional connection I'd been holding onto, was gone, worn away by a call as insincere as a rehearsed script. A few days later, Jason called again, no small talk, no tiptoeing. He got straight to the point, breezy as someone who already expected a yes. "Mom, summer's coming. Jenny and I both have work, and there's no one to watch Tyler. Think you could come help for a bit? He keeps saying he misses you." I almost laughed, but all I said was slow and dry. "Oh, help out." I stretched the words. "If I come back, where exactly am I supposed to stay? Last I heard, there's no room for me anymore." There was a pause. He wasn't ready for that. Then a fumbling attempt at diplomacy. "Well, yeah, the apartment's tight, but maybe the couch just for a while? Or you could rent somewhere close. We could chip in for rent." The nerve. That offer screamed, calculator clicking in Jenny's head from miles away. They wanted me back, not as a guest or family, but a full-time on-call nanny. No bed, no comfort, no dignity. And I'd be lucky to get a partial rent subsidy, like a self-funded temp holding a mop in one hand and a credit card in the other. Anger rose hot and fast. My knuckles whitened as my nails dug into my palm. But I didn't let it show. They didn't get to see me explode. That would have been their win. So I took a slow breath, locked the fury back in its cage, and put on the softest, sweetest tone I could manage. "Of course, Jason," I said. "I'll get things ready. Can't wait to see my grandson." I paused. "And about the camp fees, we'll talk in person. Let them think they've won. Let them make their plans. If they want my money again, fine. But this time, it'll be on my terms." I told Nancy everything, word for word. Jason's request, my decision. Every detail, her face flushed crimson. She jumped up like she wanted to storm the city herself. "Kylie, are you crazy? They're clearly trying to bleed you dry. You can't go." I gently pulled her back to her seat, placing a calm hand over hers. "Nancy, relax," I said softly. "I know exactly what I'm doing this time. I'm not going back as a nanny. I'm going back to collect." She blinked. "Collect?" I gave a cold, humorless smile. "They like the numbers game, right? Fine, let's really calculate what this so-called family bond is worth." Step 1. Housing. They said there's no room for me, offered the couch, suggested I pay for my own place fine. I'd play along. We sat at the old kitchen table like strategists, plotting every move, drawing lines in the sand. Nancy's worry transformed into something else. Her eyes lit up, fury giving way to sharp, electric excitement. Yes, she clapped her thigh. That's exactly what you should do. Let them know you're done being their doormat. I used to pour my heart into that family, hoping it'd earn me love. Instead, it earned exploitation. This time, I'd be smarter. A few days later, I began preparing for the trip back, but not like before. No big bags filled with jam, fresh tomatoes, or cookies. No mental checklists of who liked what or what might please Jenny. This time, I traveled light. Just a few summer clothes, essentials, and medications, because I'd learned the hard way, no matter how much love you give, you can't force anyone to love you back. All that effort only moved me. They never met me halfway. Before leaving, I stopped by the bank and withdrew $2,000 in cash, split into neat stacks, each tucked into hidden pockets sewn inside my clothes. That was all I was bringing. The rest of the money from the house was already safely locked away in fixed-term deposits, part of a plan Nancy and I had set up together. She knew exactly where the account book and safety key were kept. That was my armor. No one could get to it. To be certain, I looked her in the eye and said, "I'll text you every night. If there's even one day you don't hear from me, don't wait. Call the cops." She didn't flinch. "You have my word, Kylie. If they lay a finger on you, I'll be their worst nightmare." With her as my anchor, I finally felt steady and ready. A few days later, I stood in front of Jason's door, holding only a small carry-on suitcase. Jenny opened it and immediately put on an over-the-top, syrupy, sweet smile that almost made me sick. "Kylie, you're finally here. Come in, come in. Tyler's been asking about you nonstop." Jason rose from the couch, his smile mechanical, like a mask freshly strapped on. "Hey, Mom, you must be tired from the trip." I nodded silently and wheeled my suitcase into the living room. The couch was already laid out, with neatly folded blankets and a pillow. As if they were hosting royalty on a budget, Jenny, in her most considerate tone, gestured to it. "The house is really tight right now, so we'll have to ask you to make do just for tonight. Once Tyler's on summer break, you'll probably be tired from watching him all day anyway, so just get some good rest." Every word dripped with honey, but the meaning was clear. Stay out of the bedroom, don't make noise, don't get comfortable. I didn't push back or flinch. I smiled pleasantly, set my suitcase down, and said, "Oh, I'm fine, not a big deal." They visibly relaxed. I could almost hear their sighs of relief. That's when I struck, casually adding, "My back's not what it used to be, and the couch is a bit snug. I also get up 2 or 3 times a night, lights on, lights off, wouldn't want to disturb your sleep." I paused, watching their faces tighten like violin strings pulled too fast. "So, I was thinking there's a nice little motel just outside the complex. Nothing too expensive, I could stay there instead. That way, I can take care of Tyler during the day and head back at night. No disruptions, win-win." My voice was light and calm, but every word landed like a hammer on marble floors. They wanted a free live-in nanny. Too bad this nanny had options. And pride, the room froze. This wasn't in their script. Jenny recovered first, voice pitching higher. "A motel? Mom, that's so expensive. Why waste money like that? Sure, the place is small, but the couch works fine. No need to spend on something like that." It wasn't really about the money, it was about control. If I wasn't under their roof, I wasn't at their beck and call. No dinner bell ringing, no guilt trips for favors, I'd be inconvenient. "Oh, Jenny," I said, still smiling, then turned to Jason. "It's just a motel. No big deal, I think I've earned a little comfort, don't you?" I sighed and shrugged. "Only thing is, I didn't bring much cash. It was all a bit last minute." "So?" I let the sentence hang. Their faces changed instantly. They got the message. "You invited me. You cover the cost." The polite smiles vanished like smoke. Jason started fidgeting, eyes darting between me and Jenny, like a kid caught cheating. Sweat appeared on his brow. Jenny's jaw clenched, lips tight. Her eyes narrowed into knives. Silence thickened, heavy and oily. Finally, Jason spoke, voice stiff. All right. He pulled out his wallet and handed me a few crisp bills, about $500 for a few days. We'll figure things out later. Jenny let out a sharp breath and stormed off without another word. I accepted the money with a neutral expression, showing no satisfaction. Thanks, I'll go settle in. I said, see you tomorrow. I'll be here at 8 sharp to start work. Without another glance, I rolled my suitcase to the door and walked out. The sun was shining. The breeze carried hints of fresh coffee and laundry soap from the nearby laundromat. I walked down the block to a modest budget inn and booked a room. It wasn't fancy, but the windows let in light, the bed was soft, and most importantly, no one here looked at me like I owed them something. I set down my suitcase and did the first thing I needed to. Called Nancy Stepp, one complete on the other end. She practically pounded the table. That's my sis. Show them who's in charge. I hung up and sank onto the bed, exhaling a long breath. Sunlight streamed through the window, warm and golden, a world away from the cold, hard couch they'd prepared for me. But I knew better than to get comfortable. This was just the appetizer. The real course was that $5,000 robotics camp. Let's see what they really want. A mother or just the money. At exactly 8 the next morning, I showed up at Jason's door, punctual as promised. Tyler answered Grandma. His eyes lit up briefly with pure, unfiltered joy, the kind only a child can show, but then quickly dimmed, as if he was calculating whether he was allowed to feel that happy. I reached out and gently ruffled his hair before stepping inside. Jenny shuffled out of the bedroom, still in pajamas, mid-yawn, forcing a smile that felt more thorn than warmth. "Oh, you're here," she said. I nodded neutrally. "Did Tyler eat yet?" She turned toward the kitchen. "Not yet. I was just about to make something." I said nothing, sitting on the couch, turning on the morning news, and watching quietly. A few minutes later, she came out with 2 plates of plain breakfast, setting them on the table wordlessly. She glanced my way, clearly itching to say something, but swallowed it down. After breakfast, Jason and Jenny hurried out, dressing almost silently. Just as Jenny zipped her coat, she tossed over her shoulder, "Oh, Kylie, just fix something light for lunch. Tyler's laundry's in the machine. You can run that. We'll be back for dinner, so don't cook too late." I looked up, calm and unhurried. "Jenny, I didn't sleep well at the motel last night," I said gently. "Guess I'm not used to the bed, feeling kind of low energy today." Then I smiled, still sweet as honey. "I'll just take Tyler out for a quick lunch. As for laundry, I think you and Jason can handle that tonight." I agreed to watch Tyler, not run the household. The air thickened. Jenny's face felt like a mask, slipping, her lips parted, eyes narrowing as if ready to carve something into my forehead. But then she noticed Tyler watching. She bit back the words, clamped her mouth shut, and slammed the door behind her. Just like that, the rules changed. That entire day, I did exactly what I said. Watched Tyler. Nothing more. We watched cartoons, built block towers, and took walks downstairs. Cooking, cleaning, laundry, all untouched. At lunch, I took him to a small deli for sandwiches. When Jenny came home early that afternoon, she froze at the door. The kitchen was exactly as she'd left it. Dishes piled in the sink, garbage bag bulging, counters untouched. Her face tightened before she could speak. I cut her off softly. "Oh, I was feeling lightheaded all afternoon. Just tried to keep Tyler relaxed, not risking overexertion." Every time she hinted I should fold laundry or take out trash, I had a calm, firm reply. "My back's acting up. Doctor told me to avoid overexertion. That's not part of the help I agreed to." Her jaw clenched tighter, breaths shortening, but she said nothing. Summer was long, and she still needed me. Even with Tyler, I stopped being the doting pushover. When he begged for an expensive toy, I crouched and said gently, "Sweetheart, Grandma doesn't have that kind of money right now. Daddy and Mommy work very hard too. We can't always buy everything we want." When he threw the toy down in frustration, I didn't scold, I just looked him in the eye. "Pick it up, respect your toys and the people who gave them to you." Bit by bit, I planted seeds in that little boy's world. Seeds of boundaries, gratitude, and respect. I couldn't change his parents, but maybe I could leave a small part of myself in him, something that would outlast the summer. At first, Tyler seemed unsure what to make of this new grandma, confused, torn between habit and hesitation, affection and fear. But kids are adaptable and instinctive. Within days, he was orbiting me again every now and then. Tyler would still repeat one of Jenny's rehearsed lines. I knew changing a child's mindset wasn't easy, especially with parents feeding him scripted words. But I had to try. I used to be the give-it-all kind of grandma, always offering, fixing, smoothing things over before anyone asked. Not anymore. No, now I was the contract-based grandma. The job description was crystal clear. Childcare only cleaning, laundry, cooking. That was premium service, priced separately. Days passed, and the robotics camp deadline edged closer. $5,000 loomed like a clock ticking just behind Jason and Jenny's eyes. One evening at dinner, Jenny decided it was time for another strategic pitch. Kylie, she said, sliding food onto Tyler's plate delicately. This robotics camp is really something. They have a teacher from Germany, and lots of kids have already signed up. It'll really help Tyler's application to a good middle school. She glanced at me, trying to read my reaction. Jason jumped in quickly, urgent tone. Yeah, Mom, the competition's fierce these days. We really don't want Tyler falling behind. I set down my chopsticks, nodded thoughtfully, and leaned in, feigning curiosity. Oh, really? What do they teach? Who's the instructor? Where are the classes held? How many times a week? I peppered them with questions, sounding genuinely interested. They took the bait and launched into a flood of details: coding, teamwork, international STEM programs, selling it like seasoned marketers. When they finally paused, I let silence linger a moment before sighing. Sounds great, really, but $5,000? That's quite a lot of money. I added a subtle frown, just enough to suggest it might be too much for me. Then casually switched gears. But you two have decent jobs now, right? Didn't you buy a new car last year? Jenny, wasn't that a new designer bag you posted on Instagram not too long ago? So, $5,000 shouldn't be too much of a stretch, right? I sipped my tea as their faces froze. Jenny's lips thinned, skin paling slightly. Jason blinked a few times, searching for words, but finding none inside. I smirked, but kept calm and pleasant. 5,000, I repeated softly. That's not pocket change. Jenny finally forced a thin, bitter smile. Mom, you know this is really important for Tyler. Jason and I are working so hard. We just want to give him a better future. We're not trying to make you pay. Oh, I know. I nodded gently. You mean well, but I also know your finances. You bought a car, Jenny. You just got a new handbag. So 5,000 shouldn't be that big a deal. They flinched barely, but I caught it. Jason lowered his eyes, mouth opening then shutting again. Silent. I lifted my cup and took a slow sip. My funds are already allocated, I said with a shrug. All tied up, I really can't touch them. This one's on you. Their faces stiffened, like a wall they expected to walk through turned to steel. I gave one final gentle push. You're the parents. It's your job to invest in your child's future, not to rely on someone else to carry that cost. Another thick, uncomfortable silence fell. Jason's hand trembled slightly as he gripped his chopsticks, glanced at Jenny, then me. After a beat, he finally spoke. All right, Mom, we'll figure it out ourselves. Jenny said nothing, jaw clenched, chest rising and falling sharply, then turned and stormed into the kitchen to clean, lips tight, back rigid, the sting of loss in every move. She knew she'd lost this round. I wasn't the same easy target. The next morning, right on schedule, I arrived at their door, not just as grandma, but as a woman with boundaries, clarity, and leverage. In my hand was a contract I'd drafted the night before. No vague expectations, no emotional blackmail, just a clear, fair agreement. Jenny opened the door, wearing that thin, brittle smile, the kind about to crack. Morning, Kylie, she chirped. I returned a polite smile and handed her the folder. This is the work agreement I put together yesterday. Her eyes flickered. She hadn't expected it. She took the papers, flipping wearily. Kylie, what's this? It outlines our roles and responsibilities, I said calmly. You and Jason are working, and I'm happy to help with Tyler during camp, But we need to be on the same page. This is about respect, protecting my time and energy, and making sure you know what you can expect from me." She flipped through the pages, each clause deliberate, unambiguous. Childcare only, no laundry, no meal prep, no errands. Clear hours, defined schedule. Rest days, transportation costs reimbursed. Overtime requires notice and agreement. Her brow tightened, jaw tensing slightly. She didn't like it, but couldn't argue. Eventually, she passed it to Jason. His face drained color, fingers fidgeting at edges. "Mom," he muttered, eyes darting from page to me. "What is this? Do we really need contracts for family?" I smiled softly. "I'm not asking anything from you. I just want clarity. You're asking me to help, and I'm willing, but I won't carry the whole house again. That's not helping. That's enabling." Jason and Jenny exchanged looks. Tension swirled like steam between them, but Jason sighed and gave in. "If that's what you want, we'll sign." Just like that, the tone shifted. In the following days, everything fell into order. I showed up each morning, punctual and professional. Helped Tyler with breakfast, oversaw homework, took him to the park. Every action aligned with the contract. Nothing more, nothing less. Household chores? Not my department. At sundown, I clocked out and returned to my motel. Jason and Jenny, begrudgingly perhaps, didn't challenge it. A new rhythm settled in, calm, structured. But tension simmered beneath. Jenny's anxiety leaked through cracks. She'd glance at me stirring pots, eyes flickering with unsaid thoughts. Lips parted slightly, then closed. Words retreating like waves pulling back from shore. I noticed, but said nothing. Remembering the months and years I'd run that house like an unpaid maid. How she'd said nothing then. Watched silently as I wore thin now. She could hold her silence like I once did. By the second week of my contract-based return, my routine settled into quiet rhythm. I clocked in at 8 sharp, clocked out at 6. Like any professional, Tyler and I found a calm, respectful bond with clear expectations. But my world didn't shrink to Jason's house. Each afternoon after lunch, I took Tyler to the community park. It was alive with motion. Kids chasing bubbles, parents spreading picnic blankets, elderly couples strolling slow laps. At first, we were just sidelines. But soon the regulars noticed. "You new around here?" asked an older woman in oversized sunglasses, silver hair neatly swept back. "Margaret, a church volunteer and part-time organizer." "Not exactly," I smiled. "I'm staying at the motel nearby, here for the summer to help my son with his boy." Her eyes lit up. "A motel? Well, aren't you living the free life?" Another young mom chimed in, toddler cradled on her hip. "I thought you were a professional nanny," she said. "You're so gentle with him. And Tyler listens so well." I smiled. They asked how I kept Tyler engaged, so I shared what I knew. Making paper puppets from old newspapers, turning pebbles into math games, using park benches for storytelling lessons. Something shifted in their eyes. "You used to be a teacher, didn't you?" "No," I replied softly. "But I raised him myself for 7 years, with time and heart." The group went quiet for a moment. Next day, at the park entrance, some waved us over. One mom handed me a small flyer. "Our church is hosting a family volunteer day Saturday. Sorting donations, community work with kids. Want to come?" I took the flyer with a grateful nod. As I turned back toward him, Tyler's eyes lifted to mine, brimming with curiosity. "Grandma, what does it mean to be a volunteer?" I crouched down so we were eye to eye and explained gently. "It's when you give your time to help others without expecting anything back, just because it feels like the right thing to do." He nodded slowly, not fully grasping the concept, but sensing its importance. That evening, during dinner, I mentioned it casually. "I'm planning to take Tyler to a volunteer event at the church this Saturday. Would that be all right with you?" Jenny's fork stopped midair, her voice tightening. "The church? Are you certain about that?" I kept my tone light and assured her, "Absolutely, it's safe, and I think it'll be a valuable experience for him." She didn't reply, but her glance spoke volumes. On the appointed Saturday, Tyler and I arrived as promised. Together, we sorted clothing, labeled boxes, and assisted other children with organizing shelves. Margaret praised how focused Tyler was, and several of the mothers snapped photos for the church's Facebook page that night. Jenny came home visibly tense, apparently. One of her colleagues had seen the photos, especially the one where Tyler proudly stood beside his neatly labeled stack of boxes. That picture had gained the most likes. Jenny's usual smile had disappeared. "Mom, don't you think that's a bit too much for him? He's only 7. "He enjoyed himself," I said lightly, then looked toward Tyler. "Didn't you, sweetheart?" Tyler's eyes sparkled as he looked up from his carpeted blocks. "Mommy, today I helped with the clothes. Grandma said we were doing something good." Jenny said nothing further and slipped away into the kitchen. Over the following days, a subtle change took root. Neighbors began to recognize me, some greeting me with waves. The mothers started inviting us to join their picnics nearby. Children began calling me Miss Kylie Tyler, grew increasingly comfortable with our daily outings, and started asking if we could volunteer more often. As for me, I wasn't trying to replace Jenny. I was reclaiming my own identity, the version of myself that thrived beyond the confines of someone else's kitchen. Jenny's earlier restlessness softened into quiet resentment. She ceased challenging me directly, but exhaustion deepened the lines on her face with each passing day. One evening, after dinner, Jason approached and handed me a glass of water, his voice low and sincere. "That church event. Thank you. Tyler's been changing lately for the better." I nodded silently, understanding without words, sensing the shift was real. This was no longer merely about childcare. It was influence, and I had only just begun to wield it. It was a clear, crisp Wednesday afternoon, the kind where golden sunlight settles warmly on your skin, etching itself into memory. After lunch, Tyler tugged gently at my sleeve. "Grandma, can we go to the park?" I nodded, grabbed our jackets and a bottle of water, and stepped outside with him. He slipped his small hand into mine without a word. We wandered slowly along the lakeside path. Tyler veered off into the grass, kicking at fallen leaves with carefree abandon, the freedom of a child with no place pressing him onward. "Grandma," he said suddenly, turning to look at me, "do you remember where we picked those acorns last time?" I blinked, surprised, but smiled. "Of course you stuffed them into my coat pocket and said you'd grow an acorn tree." He laughed. "I thought it would sprout by morning, and you told me we had to water it with milk." I grinned. "Who knew you'd believe that?" We walked and chatted, not about anything profound, just snippets of shared memories. At one point I said, "I remember the first time you had a fever. It scared me so much." He looked up, eyes wide. "Did I cry? Did you sleep at all that night?" I didn't answer. I simply reached over and tousled his hair affectionately. Back at the house, he didn't bolt for the TV as usual. Instead, he dashed into his room. I was in the kitchen fetching water when he called out softly, "Grandma, come here." I found him sitting on the floor, surrounded by paper and markers. He handed me a drawing. "This is for you. It's me and you." On the page, a grown-up held a child's hand beneath a large tree. The lines were uneven, the colors spilling beyond the edges, but the picture was perfect. "You said we used to come to this park," he said quietly. I took the drawing and nodded. My voice caught in my throat just then. The front door opened. Jason arrived. "Dad," Tyler called, waving the paper enthusiastically. "I drew Grandma today at the park." Jason took the drawing, glanced at it, and said nothing. Minutes later, he approached me, voice low. "Thank you. Tyler's been different lately. In a good way." I said nothing. He hesitated, then added softly, "I think I'm beginning to understand how you raised him all those years." I met his gaze, calm and steady. It's never too late to learn. That night, Tyler insisted I read the same picture book 3 times in a row. Only when he was barely able to keep his eyes open did he finally settle down. As I tucked him in, he mumbled, "Grandma, can you move back in?" I smiled, pulling the blanket snug beneath his chin. "Sweetheart," I whispered, "one day you'll grow up and won't need Grandma by your side all the time." The light clicked off softly. I stood at the doorway for a long moment, watching him. He rolled over in his sleep and murmured, "Grandma." The sound tugged at something deep inside me, but I said nothing. I closed the door quietly, steady and slow. On that unusually quiet Friday night, Tyler was in his room coloring while I sat on the couch reading, the television off and the kitchen silent. Only occasional chirps from outside broke the stillness. Jenny came out of the kitchen, set the dishes in the sink without asking for help or a word, and turned on the water with her back to me. Jason sat at the dining table, phone untouched, glancing between me and Jenny, weighing some invisible burden. Finally, he spoke, "Mom." I looked up and murmured, He hesitated. Jenny spoke next. "Tyler's been different lately. He plays on his own more now and says, 'Thank you now.'" I closed my book and nodded evenly. "That's good." He cleared his throat, voice dropping as if reluctant to be overheard. "She's struggling with it. Thinks maybe you're doing it on purpose. Making him more attached to you, like it's some sort of competition." I remained silent, simply meeting his gaze. He continued, "But I don't think that's it. I think he feels seen. That he matters." The water stopped. Jenny turned around, dish towel in hand, and snapped, "So what? I don't see him, is that what you're saying?" Jason flinched. "I didn't mean that." She slammed the towel down on the counter. "Do you know what it's been like since she came back? She only does what she wants and somehow gets praised for it. I do the laundry, the meals, the logistics, and no one notices." Jenny's voice rose as she gained momentum. Jason tried to interject, but she continued, "She's trying to prove she's the better mom, more lovable." "And you?" She pointed at Jason, voice cracking. "You're letting her." I didn't respond, didn't look her way, didn't defend myself. I just sat, eyes fixed on the coffee table, where Tyler's watercolor markers lay scattered. I waited. Her anger collided with silence, like fists against soft cotton. No noise, no argument, only stillness. Jason sat quietly for a long moment, then spoke softly. Maybe she just knows better how to love people. Everything halted. Jenny opened her mouth, then closed it. She stood frozen, shoulders trembling once before turning and walking away. The bedroom door clicked softly, a quiet finality. Just before dawn the next morning, I stepped out of the motel. Jason was waiting by my car, holding a white envelope. "Mom," he said, voice rough, "I didn't sleep much last night." I said nothing. He extended the envelope. "It's not money, just a piece of paper." I took it, unfolding the note. The handwriting was uneven, hurried. "You were always home to us?" We just forgot what that meant. I folded it back up and nodded. "Thank you," I said. He looked at me. "Would you come back to live with us again?" I shook my head. "Let's wait till Tyler's older, then we'll see." He didn't argue, just nodded. As I turned to leave, he called out once more, "Mom." I paused. "I'm sorry for waiting so long to stand beside you." I raised a hand in farewell. No words needed that evening. Back at the motel, my phone buzzed a message from Jenny. "Sorry, I think I was too emotional and overreacted. I didn't really see things clearly before." No punctuation, no greeting, just a plain, crumpled line of text, like a piece of paper that had been balled up and smoothed out. I neither replied nor deleted it. On that final Friday of August, I carefully folded my few belongings and packed them into my suitcase. There were no farewells, no messages posted in the family group chat. Just as silently as I'd arrived, I left, neat and tidy, without leaving any loose ends. Tyler was still fast asleep that morning, and I didn't want to disturb him. Instead, I opened his sketchbook to the page where we had drawn birds together and wrote in small, deliberate letters along the edge, "If you miss Grandma, draw me something and mail it. Letters last longer than calls." I zipped up the suitcase, and outside the motel, Nancy was waiting patiently in her car, her window rolled down, wearing that casual grin she always had. "Got everything?" she asked. "You didn't pack their pots and pans too, did you?" I chuckled softly, took one last look around the neighborhood, and said nothing. By the time we reached the countryside, the sky was just beginning to brighten with dawn. The house stood as it always had, red brick and 2 stories tall, though now there were a few fresh mint plants in the yard, Nancy's latest gardening experiment. She sprang out of the car, arms wide open like a ringmaster welcoming back her star performer. "Well, look who's back! Our fearless city warrior, returning home to retire in glory." I couldn't help but laugh. Dragging my suitcase inside felt less like an ending and more like finally arriving where I truly belonged. The kitchen smelled of warm oats, and a familiar snore drifted softly from the dog bed in the corner. Nothing had changed, and yet somehow everything was different. Within days, I slipped effortlessly back into my old routine. Mornings spent in the garden, afternoons making jam, and occasional strolls through the market with Nancy, arm in arm. The pace was slow, but never empty. One crisp morning, the doorbell rang. "Miss Kylie," the mailman called, holding out an envelope. "Got a letter for you. Looks like it came from the city." I signed for it, and the moment I saw the handwriting, my heart skipped a beat. The crooked letters were drawn with such care. Tyler's handwriting. I sat down at the small kitchen table and carefully opened the envelope. Inside slipped a stiff, wrinkled piece of cardstock. A drawing. It showed a little boy holding hands with an elderly woman in a blue dress beneath a tree, and high up in the branches, 3 birds took flight. On the back, shaky block letters read, "Grandma, are you still making blueberry jam? I want to eat your bread again. My teacher said to write about the warmest person I know. I wrote about you. I miss you." I didn't cry. I simply stood, walked to the fridge, and pinned the drawing to it with a magnet holding one corner. Sunlight streamed through the kitchen windows, casting a warm glow on rows of jam jars lined up on the sill, glowing amber like captured pieces of summer. I opened a jar. It was still warm, tasted a spoonful sweeter than I remembered. Nancy peeked in from the porch. "What's with the face?" she teased. "Let me guess. Someone wrote asking for money?" I looked up and smiled. "Nope. It's a reminder that I still matter." She raised an eyebrow. "Honey, you run this county. You're the CEO of Blueberry Jam Incorporated." I laughed softly, but said nothing. Instead, I carefully folded Tyler's letter and tucked it into the wooden box in the back of the kitchen drawer, the one where I kept all the important things, because getting older doesn't mean losing value. Sometimes it just means being needed in a different way.